The English Podcast by Ecsplicite. Oh, for a muse of fire that would ascend the brightest heaven of invention. Hello and welcome to the episode. I'm Lawrence, and this week marks just over 400 years since the death of arguably the most famous playwright in the English language, William Shakespeare. Curiously, we actually know very little about the man, but the legacy of his works, 37 or so plays, and the many poems and sonnets, mean that today he is very much alive and well in the language, and that is precisely what we're going to hear about today in the company of April and Edward. So let's start with the question. How many words, still used today in English, did Shakespeare introduce into the language? Was it A, 170, B, 17,000, or C, 1,700? We'll give you the answer at the end of the episode. But let's go now straight to April and Edward as they share their love of Shakespeare.
Hey, did you know that many of the words and sayings we use today come from Shakespeare?
Well, I know some of his quotations, such as "all the world's a stage."
Yes, that's a classic one. It means that life is like a play, and we're all just actors on the stage, playing our parts.
I think there's quite a lot of truth in that.
Have you heard of green-eyed monster?
What on earth does that mean?
It means jealousy. In the play Othello, the character Iago describes jealousy as a monster which devours itself. What about Love is Blind? You must have heard of that one.
Yes, but I didn't know it was from Shakespeare. It means you don't worry about any faults in your loved one.
Yes, that's right. This is a good one that surely everybody knows. Break the ice.
Another one I didn't know was from Shakespeare. It just means to start a conversation when you meet someone new.
Yes, and Shakespeare didn't just give us lots of quotations and clever sayings. He also invented new words from existing ones. For example, he made lonely from loan and watchdog from watch and dog.
That's a good way to make new words. Just put short ones together. Very clever. When do we use the word watchdog? It's used quite a lot, isn't it?
Yes, that's very topical these days. A watchdog can be a person or a committee that makes sure companies do not act illegally or irresponsibly. But last but not least, to be or not to be. It comes from the play Hamlet, and it's where Hamlet is contemplating suicide. It's a philosophical question about whether it's better to live or to die.
I see. Bit depressing, though.
Actually, there are also many individual words that Shakespeare gave us. For example, bandit and critic.
Well, at least those are easy to understand.
Yes, and did you know the word dawn also comes from Shakespeare?
I would never have guessed that.
You would also think that admirable and hostile are from French. Maybe Shakespeare took them from French and was the first person to use them in English. In the English language, they are attributed to him.
Well, it seems that whenever we speak English, we use many words from Shakespeare without even realising it. I'll never speak again without wondering if we owe the words to the bard. Thank you, Edward, and thank you, Shakespeare.
So let's return to our question at the beginning of the podcast, which was, if you remember, how many words did Shakespeare invent that are still used today? Was it A, 170, B, 17,000, or C, 1,700 or 1,700? Well, the answer is C. According to the official website, Shakespeare provided the first recorded use of over 1,700 words by combining words, changing nouns into verbs, adding extra syllables, words like bedroom, kissing, puppy dog, and the verbs to gossip and to undress. He even thought up, that means invented, the word varied, which fittingly describes the very richness and diversity of his genius. Please tune in again in 2 weeks' time for our next podcast, which comes from the parish of Trelawney in Jamaica, to hear from our colleague Sasha Gay, who shares tips on food and lifestyles for a healthier, happier existence. Thanks for listening. Bye for now.